Hey guys, welcome back to Radical Living Podcast. This is our final episode of 2020 and it's a little bit different. We are going to do some reflecting in this episode. I am not the interviewer, I am the interviewee, and I have asked none other than my mother to interview me. So Mum is a prayer warrior in Coaching for Christ. That's kind of the connection, and Mum dedicates time to pray for myself, for the other coaches, and also just Coaching for Christ as an organisation. So we're very, very grateful for Mum and the prayer warriors that dedicate their time. So Mum was going to be interviewing me. Her name is Rebecca, aka Becky, aka Bex. And she's going to be doing the interviewing, and she's going to be asking me questions. A little bit nervous than usual because I don't know what she's going to ask, but we're really looking forward to it. I just want to say a massive thank you to every single one of you guys who are listening. It's been a bit of a whirlwind of the past year, but the past few months, and getting Radical Living up and running. And I just want to say thank you for your support, for tuning in every other Friday, for liking and subscribing and following on social media, and just for telling everyone about the podcast. And hopefully this episode will be a little bit nostalgic for you. You'll remember, maybe I talk about a past guest or a past episode, and you'll be able to say, hey, that challenged me too. I really got something from that, or oh, I remember that person. And so hopefully it'll be a little trip down memory lane. And I just want to say that this is your journey too, and this isn't just my journey of the podcast, but this is your journey, and I just want to bring you along with me. So really looking forward to this episode and what Mum has to ask me. And yeah, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hello everybody. I'm Jess's mum, and I just pray you had a lovely Christmas with your family and friends, and that you're all keeping safe. And Jessica, yes. I have drew the short straw in interviewing you. I'm not an interviewer, so you'll have to have patience with me. What team do you support? Football team do you support?
Oh, well, if you've been listening to all the previous episodes, you'll know this. I am a big Arsenal fan. However, I say that in a lower voice because we're fighting relegation. But you've actually a big part to play in that, Mum, of why I'm an Arsenal supporter.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yes, you copied me.
I just remember, I have this vivid memory of you doing the ironing and me, because Dad's a big Leeds supporter, and I was like, this was whenever I started to realise that I really liked football, and I was like, well, what football team should I support? And you were like, oh, well, I really like, do you remember?
Yeah, I remember, because you never ironed. So, yeah.
And you just really liked it was the like yellow O2 Arsenal top. And I actually got it, and that was where my Thierry Henry love came from, because I loved him. I think I called him Henry, but it was Henry.
Jessica, why did you decide to do this episode instead of doing the ordinary interviewing somebody else? Why did you want to do this one?
Yeah, good question. I wanted to do this episode a little bit differently. I normally, just to give you a little bit of insight, I listen to other podcasts and look at other podcasts just to kind of draw inspiration from them. And I wanted this episode to be different. And actually, to my surprise, in all the podcasts I checked out, nobody really did like a Christmas special, or nobody really changed anything up. So I wanted to be a little bit different and do it differently.
Radical.
Yes, radical. And I wanted it to be kind of nostalgic for the listeners. And to be honest, it was something that I've been praying about quite a lot. And for anybody that's listening to this, I will be chatting about my faith quite a bit. And hopefully don't let that put you off, but just have an open mind about that. And I've been praying about it and asking God, like, what should I do? You know, should I do something different, or should I just release another episode that I've recorded? And I thought it would be pretty nostalgic and just really good for you guys that are listening to kind of take a time of reflection. And, you know, we've had some amazing guests on the podcast and some just really insightful and inspiring journeys and conversations and topics. And I just wanted it to be where you're listening to this and I talk about a past guest or a past episode and you'd be like, oh, I remember that. Or, yeah, that really challenged me. Or, actually, I remember something else that challenged me from that conversation. And I really just wanted it to be an opportunity to say that this is your journey too. This podcast isn't just about, you know, the guests that we've had on or me interviewing them. This is you as well. And you're getting to journey on this with us at Radical Living. And it was just an episode to give back.
That's great, Jessica. That explains why you're wanting to do this podcast. So we've had a lot of topics on through this year, but there's been a few on trafficking. So what has really challenged you personally by listening to them talking about this subject?
Yeah, it's a pretty challenging topic. And I've had a couple of guests on previously talking about this. So I've had Laura from Hope and Light Jewellery and I've had Bryn from Blue Bear Coffee. And one of the things I love about this podcast is that it's all about people. And, you know, everyone, no matter who you come across, everyone is passionate about something. So each one of us has a passion. For me, it's faith and football and people. Those are my passions in life. That's what I love. And anybody that knows me will know that. I'm very, very passionate about those things.
Yeah, from a wee girl, you were passionate about football.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. And it just blew my mind that I could connect football and faith.
Yeah, definitely. It shows God has been just using you from a wee girl that was out on the street playing football.
Yeah.
And he has took you into Coaching for Christ now. Yeah. It's just wonderful to see how the plan God has for your life just expand.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I have to have a big shout out to one of my best friends, Kyle. He was the one that kind of introduced me to football.
Yeah, he always beat you but
we'll not talk about that. Yeah, so I just loved it, and those are my passions, and I just love that everyone has a passion, and that's what I wanted Radical Living to be. I wanted it to be a podcast that gave people a platform to talk about things that other people don't. And I wanted, in a sense, to ruffle some feathers, and I wanted to shine a light in the dark places and talk about things that aren't really talked about. And, you know, we've had some amazing people on this podcast already where they get to share, you know, their personal experiences and journeys and talk about this. And Laura and Bryn were just an absolute joy to interview. I remember Laura was the very first person that I ever asked, and she just was like, yep, let's do it. And, you know, I was kind of just starting out, and Laura just, I remember coming away from that episode, I think I cried in the car because I was just so thankful, and I've just been so thankful to Laura ever since. And Bryn added a little bit of something different to the podcast. He was a different accent for everybody, and he just shared his experiences. And what I loved about Laura and Bryn, they're totally different people, different backgrounds, different experiences, but yet they had this same focus.
Yeah, the same passion.
Yeah, the same passion, and that was trafficking, and it was human trafficking, and it was injustice. And you know, that's, you know, whenever you listen to those episodes from Laura and Bryn, you just can really sense their passion against injustice. And they do it, you know, Bryn's an ex-policeman. You know, Laura went on trips to Asia and Cambodia, and yet, you know, they did an amazing job of just raising awareness for this global issue. And I suppose, to answer your question, Mum, that was what really challenged me. It was the fact that this is a global issue of human trafficking and social injustice, but it's happening on our doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Laura and Bryn highlighted that brilliantly, is that, you know, this is happening right here and right now, but what are we going to do about it? And it was kind of what challenged me was we have this option of we can either walk past this issue, we can see it and ignore it and walk past it, or we can address it and we can do something about it. And for me, like, I came away from both those episodes really inspired to just make a change, and that might be something tiny. And my contribution, I hope, is that I can get Bryn and Laura on the podcast and raise awareness for Blue Bear Coffee and Hope and Light Jewelry, and, you know, people will support their work and will keep, you know, then raising awareness about this. But I mean, we see injustice in the Bible all the time, you know, all throughout the Bible, in the Old Testament and New Testament. But what I find hope in, and I hope Bryn and Laura and anybody listening to this will find hope in the fact that God knows and God sees.
Yeah.
And ultimately God will bring justice. And we might not see it in our lifetime, but God promises that. And what's amazing is God has given each one of us different gifts and different talents. And he's given us voices to do something about it. So yeah, that was just something that really challenged me from both of their episodes.
Leading on from that, Jessica,
Mm-hmm.
you always ask people that are doing the podcast, what does radical mean to them?
Yes.
So I'm turning the tables on you. What does radical mean to you?
Thanks. What does radical mean to me? The name Radical Living, I could probably do a whole other episode on this. Like, that was a whole other process. Even, you know, God giving me that name for the podcast, and you'll know that because you were a part of that process. And there was a couple of different names floating about at the time, and Radical Living just really, it just really stuck. And you know what I loved about the name is that it got mixed reactions. So whenever I said to people at the time, whenever I started to tell more and more people about it, because I kept it quite private, that was really good advice that I was given, just to kind of keep the podcast between me and God for a period of time. But whenever I started telling people about it, and whenever I told them, oh yeah, it's called Radical Living, I remember I got mixed reactions. And I don't know if you remember that, but you know, some people were like, oh, like I really like that. And then other people were a bit delayed in their response, and they were like, oh, radical, like what?
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? And I suppose I really like that, because radical, whenever you hear that word, it makes you feel uncomfortable, almost. Like whenever you hear the word radical, you're like, you nearly like tense up and you're like, oh, like what does that mean? What, like what's this podcast about? And really, like, no matter what generation you're a part of, like as human beings, none of us like to be uncomfortable. Like, we like the lives that we have, we like what we know, and you know, we
don't like stepping out of the boat.
It's we don't really like stepping out of the boat, and that's why I really like Peter in the Bible, because Peter did. And I know he sunk, but at least he took that step. And you know, that actually was kind of in my head throughout that process, was Peter having the faith to step out. And radical living, you know, none of us like to be uncomfortable. And in a way, and in a strange way, I quite like that. And I think we're in that constant tension of, we want comfort, but we also long to be radical. And we long to make a difference, and we long to do something and be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And for me, to answer your question, radical is an everyday choice. It's not this, you'll reach it when you get to 60, or you'll achieve it whenever you are 35 and you've done all these amazing. Radical is an everyday choice, and I think that's a really big challenge for me as I say it, for you listening to it, and for anybody listening to it. You can choose to be radical right now. You can choose to do something and make a difference. You don't have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70. You can be radical today. And for anybody listening to this, I wanted to take this opportunity to say, whether you have a faith or whether you don't, and please don't let this put you off from listening to the rest of this episode, I think there's a stigma of whenever you follow Jesus, it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually like to counter that and say following Jesus is anything but safe.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, God will ask you to do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, out of your comfort
Out
zone.
of your comfort zone, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
God will ask you to step outside of the boat. God will ask you to follow him into the unknown where we don't have control, where we don't know what's coming next. God will unlock things inside of you that you didn't know were there. And actually, whenever you think about it, whenever you don't feel safe and whenever you don't feel comfortable, that's actually when you feel most alive.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's adrenaline and there's a rush and you want that.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus came to give us.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you think about it,
Yeah.
in John 10:10, I think I spoke about this in Val English episode, you know, the thief came to steal and kill and destroy,
Yeah.
but Jesus came that we may have life and have it to the full.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me and for anybody listening to this, think about it. That's what
Yeah.
Jesus wanted for us. He wanted us to be radical. Jesus himself was radical. You can love radically. You can forgive radically. You know?
And there's a wee saying, only one life will soon be passed. Only what's done for Christ will last.
Yeah.
And that's radical. You know, we can think of all these things to do,
Mm-hmm.
but if we sit and don't do them, it's no use.
Yeah.
We need to, like you said, Peter stepped out of the boat
Yeah.
and he walked on water when he kept his eyes on Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute he took his eyes off Jesus, he sank.
Yeah.
And we do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And radical living is stepping out of that boat
Yeah.
and keeping our eyes on Jesus.
Yeah, and I think just going off that, Mum, like, you know, something God's really been teaching me this year and with the whole process of Radical Living podcast is that faith requires risk
Yeah.
and risk requires action
Mm-hmm.
and action requires faith. So it's like a full circle.
Yeah.
It always comes back to faith because we
Yeah.
have to believe in something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Jessica, we are going to go back a wee bit
Mm-hmm.
about people that you interviewed about sport.
Yes.
Now, we all know that you love sport.
Yeah.
If all your A levels was in sport, you would
Mhm.
have been top of the class because you knew everything about sport.
Unfortunately, I wasn't.
Yeah, but putting that aside, what challenged you from these people that you interviewed when they were talking about their sport? What challenged you and really spoke to you?
Yeah, I had quite a few people on talking about like sport and about like health and well-being and really just having a healthy and disciplined lifestyle. And a few of the people that we've had on, like Estelle Wallace, we've had her on, like she's essentially a life coach, and we've had Adam, who's a long jumper, and Matthew Boyd more recently, who is like he's a player manager and has played football. And like, you know, all three of those episodes in ways were so different, but were just brilliant as well. Like Estelle just has this. I think me and you listened to Estelle in the car.
Yeah,
Is that right?
We did.
You know,
it's great.
yeah, Estelle just has this like presence about her that makes you want to pay attention or makes you want to listen to what she says. Like she has this like vibrant, like just aura around her. And you know, Adam is totally different because Adam's just like laid back, very chilled, very relaxed, but he is extremely focused and hardworking and dedicated athlete. And Matthew has this like sense of quiet confidence, gentle authority, and he's like a natural leader. And whenever he speaks, you want to hear what he has to say. But one thing that just really struck me about Estelle, Adam, and Matthew in all of their episodes, and I could take an episode each to go through like highlights, but the main thing that stuck out to me and the one thing that they had in common was their love for other people.
Yeah.
And how they want to give back. Like they're not competing with other people. They are encouraging others, and they're, you know, a really big thing that, you know, God has taught me as well this year is I don't want to compete with others.
Yes.
I want to cheerlead them. I want to encourage them.
Yeah.
And that
Be
was...
a Barnabas.
Yeah, be a Barnabas. And
Yeah.
that was one thing that really stuck out to me from Estelle's interview, Adam and Matthew's interviews,
Yeah.
was that I want to cheerlead others. And that really challenged me, because in every single one of their episodes, like, Adam is now coaching as well, and he wants to help other people learn from his mistakes and learn from his experience. Estelle is doing an incredible work.
Yeah.
Just totally inspiring.
I just loved the way Estelle, it wasn't even all about the workout.
Yeah.
As she said, she would come in and sit and
Yeah.
chat, and
Yeah.
you know, it's all about how you feel as well. That they were going out feeling great
Yeah.
after just sitting with a cup of tea and talking. She was so inspiring.
Yeah, and you know, that's all a part of life coaching. And then Matthew, you know, Matthew wants to reach the guys in his team.
Yeah.
He wants to lead by example, and he wants to have integrity and show integrity. And for me, that was just something that really spoke to me and challenged me, was that fact of, you know, Jess, don't keep all of your ideas to yourself, or don't, you know, I think every generation has struggled with this obsession of self, but something that really challenged me from those episodes was take the focus off of yourself and cheerlead other people. And that's something that I really want to take into 2021, is to create for other people and encourage other people and support them on what they're doing. And that's a big part of this podcast. You know, it's just a little part I get to play, is to raise awareness for these amazing, you know, passion projects and stories and journeys. And yeah.
Right, Jessica, we're going well. We're going to talk about 3 other people now that you interviewed, and it's more about their life. We were talking about sport, but this here is more about their life and how they live it with God. Yeah,
just reflecting on these 3, and this is the last kind of group of past guests that we've had, but a big part of Radical Living podcast is it is about people, and it's about their life and their journey. And these 3 people again are so different. And you know, Gemma's my sister. Your eldest
daughter,
yes, your eldest, firstborn. And you know, Gemma talked about parenthood and the joys and the challenges and everything that comes with that. And then we had Grace, who is just an inspiring young woman. You know, for someone so young, she's been through so much, but yet just has this like seal for life. And she is an athlete, she's a long distance runner, she's a record breaker in her profession. And then we had Val.
Well, what can I say about Val? I don't want to pick any favourites, but I think he's up there at the top.
Yeah, Val, like there's only one Val English.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Like I think people like Val are just so rare to come across.
It's just Val has the joy of the Lord.
Yeah, he does. And you know, I don't think I've ever laughed as much in an episode as I did with Val. And yet at the same time, and this is what I love about him, he's got an amazing sense of humour and joy and zeal for life. Yeah. But he just has this wisdom.
Yeah, he brings it all back.
And and experience. And it was just incredible. But all 3 of these people, one thing that stood out for me, and if I had to pick a common denominator, like this word came to my mind, and it was warrior. Yeah. Like each one of them, like Gemma, Grace and Val, they're just warriors in the sense of, you know, no matter what life throws at them, they're going to keep going. And like each one of them have been through their trials and their struggles. And like, you know, whenever you look at a person, like there is a reason people are the way they are. You know, there's a combination of characteristics, of experiences, of trials, of you know, that make up their DNA. And for me, that was just what I got from all 3 of those episodes. No matter what they go through, no matter what they come up against, no matter what they've been through or what they're going to encounter, they're warriors. And they just had this like their dependence on God was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that really came across in their episodes, like their dependence on God and just how they want to embrace life. Gemma wants to be the best parent that she can be.
Yeah.
But yet there's more to Gemma than being a parent.
Definitely.
You know, Val,
Mm-hmm.
ex-pastor,
Yeah.
just this absolute seal and joy.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more to him. Grace, you know, she shared about her past experiences, you know, with her mum being unwell and,
Yeah.
you know, her struggle with eating and exercising. And yet she is, you know, taking that in her stride, and she's now a breaking athlete.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
But they all find their strength in the Lord.
Yeah, and that's what really came across in their episodes, that they couldn't do what they do
No.
without God and without relying on God. And that, for me, was a challenge, because it made me think, well, Jess, do you depend on God as much as you should?
Yeah.
Or, you know, is he who you rely on, or do you rely on yourself? And, you know, something that really came out of those episodes was that they relied on something bigger.
Yeah. Right, Jessica. This is the last question. You'll be glad to know.
Sigh of relief.
So we've had some great podcast episodes over 2020.
We have.
2020 has been a tough year for everybody with the pandemic. But during this pandemic, the opportunities that we've all had to go online and you to start up this podcast.
Yeah, true.
Which maybe never would have happened if we hadn't had
the
pandemic. But God, I always say, brings good out of bad. And I think this podcast has been a great thing that he has brought to us. So how would you look back on all this episodes that you've done, and what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. There's been some amazing episodes come out of this, and you know, you're spot on. I don't think a podcast would even entered my mind if I wasn't in lockdown. And you know, that's a whole other episode. That was a journey. And you're laughing because, you know,
I was part of it.
You were part of it, and there was many walks up in the countryside talking about things, and it was interesting. But just really thankful for this past year, actually, and what has come out of it, and the lessons that have been learned. And I think for anybody listening, I think if we take the time to reflect, we'll be able to realise how much we've all grown and how much we've all learnt. And to be honest, I think you're right. We all want to leave 2020 in the past, but we want to be thankful for it too. And looking ahead to 2021, it's super exciting. I've no idea where God's going to take this, but I'm excited for where he's going to take it. Like I said in a previous answer, you know, what does radical mean? God asks us to go places we don't know, and we maybe don't want to, but we have to. We have to take that step. And really excited for 2021. January is going to look slightly different, as we're not going to upload any new episodes because we are in the middle of a lockdown and I can't necessarily meet up with people, but we are going to do something slightly different on social media. So even though there's not going to be any new episodes, there is going to be more of a social media presence, and you guys will be able to tune into that, and I'll release a little bit more information.
So that's a wee teaser.
That's a wee teaser. That's teaser number 1. Teaser number 2, Rebecca, is that we've got maybe a little surprise coming out towards the end of January, and again that'll be revealed closer to that time, and hopefully it'll be something that you guys are interested in. It'll grab your interest and you'll want it, and you'll just want to show radical living wherever you go and wherever you are. So 2021 already is looking different, but we're just going to embrace that. And I just want to say, kind of to close this off, Mum, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I know this is probably a little bit out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not an upfront person, as everybody
really
knows me.
I wouldn't say that.
It's okay. I'm sitting in the living room with nobody watching, so this hasn't been too bad.
And we're both in our pajamas.
Yeah, both in our jammies.
Quite comfortable. So yeah, thank you so much for interviewing me and agreeing to do it, and I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully you have too.
Yeah.
And I think for all of us, just to finish this off, just all of us are on this journey of radical living, and that's what I love about it. It doesn't exclude anybody. Instead, it includes everybody.
Yeah.
And we're all on this journey of radical living together. And I want to inspire you and challenge you and myself and Mum, stepping into 2021 to make that everyday choice of radical.
Yeah.
And not to put it off. We're people who put things off, and we say somebody else will do it or I'll do it another time, but actually take that risk and take that step and say, do you know what, 2021, something that God really spoke to me this year is, it was almost like he just kept whispering it to me, and he's like, Jessica, what have you got to lose? And I'm saying that to every single one of you who are listening. What have you got to lose? Absolutely nothing. So make that choice of everyday radical living, and whether you have a faith or whether you don't, be open to something bigger than yourself. And yeah, Mum, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Guys, make sure to check out Radical Living on Facebook and Instagram, and check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and YouTube, and make sure to like, subscribe and share and follow, and tell everybody about Radical Living.